Hello, my name is Megan, and I'm 32 years old. I live in Houston, Texas, and my life used to be simple. I had a good job working as an assistant at a local marketing agency, and I loved spending my weekends gardening and reading mystery novels. But everything changed when I married Jake. At first, Jake seemed like the perfect husband. He was sweet, funny, and always supportive. At least that's what I thought. But after a year of marriage, things began to fall apart. It wasn't sudden. It was little by little, like water dripping until it overflows. Jake's older brother passed away last year, and that's when the trouble truly began. His brother left behind 3 boys, Aaron, 12, Dylan, 8, and Tyler, 6. They were loud, messy, and full of energy. I didn't blame them for being kids, but Jake expected me to take on a role I never signed up for, their full-time caregiver. One evening, Jake came home from work and threw his jacket over the couch like he always did. I was in the kitchen making dinner, trying to ignore the headache I'd had all day after dealing with the boys' chaos. Aaron had spilled juice all over the living room rug, Dylan broke one of my favorite vases, and Tyler threw a tantrum because I wouldn't let him eat candy before dinner. "Megan," Jake called from the living room. His voice was calm, but I knew what was coming. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel and walked over to him. "What is it now, Jake?" He looked at me with that serious expression that I had grown to hate. "We need to talk." I sighed and sat down across from him. "Go ahead." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I need you to take better care of the boys. I know it's been hard, but they're family. They need you. We need you." "I've been trying," I said, feeling the sting of tears in my eyes. "But I can't do this alone, Jake. You're their uncle, not me. And I didn't marry you to become a nanny." His jaw tightened. "If you don't do this, Megan, our relationship is over. I'll file for divorce." Those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Divorce? Was he serious? I stared at him, hoping he would take it back, but he didn't. His eyes stayed cold, as if he had rehearsed this conversation in his head 100 times. "You're really going to throw away our marriage because of this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I'm not throwing it away," he replied. "I'm giving you a choice. Help me raise them, or we're done." I felt anger boil inside me. How could he put me in this position? How could he expect me to give up my happiness, my peace of mind, just because he didn't want to take responsibility? "Fine," I whispered, standing up. "You'll get your answer soon." Without another word, I walked to the bedroom, locked the door, and turned off my phone. I needed time to think. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let Jake control me. Not anymore. I had a plan forming in my mind, and it was time to take back my life. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling while Jake's words echoed in my mind. "Help me raise them, or we're done." My fingers clenched the bedsheet, and for the first time, I felt something stronger than sadness, determination. I wasn't going to let him push me into this. I wasn't going to sacrifice my dreams, my peace of mind, and my future just because Jake wanted to take the easy way out. If he wanted a battle, he'd get one. I sat up, grabbed my notebook from the nightstand, and began writing down everything I needed to do to protect myself. The first thing I had to do was gather proof that I'd been supporting most of the household expenses. Jake hadn't been as financially responsible as he liked to pretend. Over the past few months, I had quietly paid off credit card bills, grocery expenses, and even covered part of the boys' school supplies. If we went through a divorce, I wasn't going to let him walk away with my hard-earned money. The next morning, I woke up early, my heart pounding as I moved quietly through the house. Jake was still asleep on the couch. I didn't feel guilty. After all, he was the one who had threatened to leave me. In the kitchen, I made a cup of coffee and sat at the table with my laptop. I accessed our shared bank account and began downloading statements, receipts, and any evidence I could find. I needed to protect myself. Just as I finished, Jake woke up and walked into the kitchen. His hair was a mess, and he looked half asleep. "Morning," he mumbled, pouring himself some coffee. I forced a smile. "Morning." We sat in silence for a moment before he finally spoke. "Did you think about what I said last night?" I nodded, keeping my tone neutral. "Yes, I did. And I'm working on it," I said vaguely. I wasn't lying, just not in the way he expected. Later that afternoon, I received a text from someone unexpected, Jake's cousin, Mark. He and Jake weren't exactly close, but Mark had always been kind to me. I hadn't spoken to him in months, but his message was clear. Hey, Megan. I heard about the situation with Jake and the kids. I thought you should know something. Call me when you can. I didn't hesitate. I stepped outside and dialed his number. He picked up on the second ring. Mark, what's going on? He sighed. I didn't want to get involved, but Jake's been hiding some things from you. He's been using your money to cover more than just household expenses. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He opened a separate bank account a few months ago, Mark explained. He's been funneling money into it and spending it on things you probably don't know about. I felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. Do you have proof of this? Yes. I'll send you the details, he said. I just thought you deserved to know. Thank you, Mark, I whispered, my voice shaky. As soon as we hung up, my phone buzzed with an email from Mark containing screenshots of transactions. My hands trembled as I scrolled through them. Dinners at expensive restaurants, online purchases, and even payments to a rental property I had no idea about. I wasn't going to wait. I printed the statements, grabbed them, and walked back into the living room, where Jake was sitting on the couch watching TV. Jake, I said, my voice firm. He looked up, raising an eyebrow. What's up? I threw the papers on the coffee table. Care to explain this? He picked up the statements, and his face paled as he scanned them. Where did you get these? That's not the question you should be asking, I said coldly. What you should be asking is how you thought you'd get away with it. I was going to tell you, he stammered. I just needed time to figure things out. Don't lie to me, Jake. You weren't planning on telling me anything. You've been taking my money and using it behind my back. I could feel the anger bubbling up, but I kept my voice steady. You threatened me with divorce last night. So guess what? I'm giving you exactly what you want. His eyes widened. Wait, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. I turned and walked toward the door. I'll be staying at a hotel until the paperwork is ready. Don't call me. As I packed my things, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, Mark was standing there. He looked serious, holding a folder in his hands. There's something else you need to see, he said, handing me the folder. I opened it and gasped. Inside were pictures of Jake meeting with a lawyer weeks ago, a lawyer specializing in asset transfers. Jake hadn't just been planning to take my money. He had been planning to transfer the house into his name, without me knowing. That's why he wanted you to stay with the boys, Mark said softly. He thought you'd be too distracted to notice what he was doing. I felt tears prick my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of anger. I had been played, manipulated, and lied to. But not anymore. I looked up at Mark and nodded. Thanks for helping me. But I'm done being the victim. Good, he said. What's the plans? I smiled for the first time in days. I'm going to make sure Jake regrets this for the rest of his life. Underscore 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 underscore. The hotel room was small but comfortable. I had packed a few essentials and left everything else behind, knowing I wouldn't be gone for long. Once this was over, Jake wouldn't be in the house anymore. I would. I spent the first night mapping out my next steps and setting things in motion. I didn't feel sad. I didn't even feel scared. I felt powerful. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Sandra Davis, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who had a reputation for winning difficult cases. I handed her the folder of documents I had collected. Sandra flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. This is solid evidence, she said, tapping the papers. We can definitely use the bank records to prove financial misconduct. And the house transfer plan? That's going to destroy him in court. I don't want him to walk away with anything, I said firmly. He used me, threatened me, and now he's trying to take everything I built. I won't let that happen. Sandra nodded. Good. But before we file the divorce papers, I suggest we freeze the joint bank account. That will stop him from moving any more money. I'm ready, I replied. Within hours, Sandra filed the necessary paperwork. By the time Jake realized what was happening, it would already be too late. That evening, I received a text from him. "Why is our bank account frozen? What did you do?" I smiled at the screen, but I didn't reply. Let him wonder. Let him panic. Minutes later, he called. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. He left a message, his voice angry but desperate. "Megan, you better pick up the phone. I know you're behind this. You're making a big mistake. Call me back now." I didn't. Instead, I called Sandra to update her. "If he tries anything aggressive, let me know," she said. "The restraining order will be our next step if needed." I hung up and leaned back on the hotel bed, feeling calmer than I had in days. Jake was losing control, and I wasn't done yet. 2 days later, I received a call from Mark. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Jake's parents are furious with him. They just found out about the money he was hiding, and they're cutting him off financially. He went to them asking for help, and they said no." I laughed, a sound that felt strange, but freeing. "So now he's completely cornered." "Pretty much," Mark replied. "But there's more. I heard from a friend of mine who works with Jake. He's been embezzling money from his company too. They're doing an internal investigation, and if they find proof, he could lose his job, or worse." This was the break I needed. If Jake lost his job, he wouldn't be able to afford a lawyer or fight me in court. I thanked Mark and immediately called Sandra to discuss the next step. "This is good news," Sandra said. "But we need to act fast. If he's under investigation at work, he'll be desperate to make a deal with you. We don't want that. We want him to suffer the consequences of his actions." I agreed. "Let's push forward with the divorce filing. I want him served as soon as possible." The following evening, I returned to the house to gather the rest of my belongings. I wasn't expecting to see Jake there, but as soon as I walked through the door, I heard him shouting from the living room. "Megan!" His voice was loud and angry. I took a deep breath and walked in, keeping my head high. "There you are," he sneered. "You've been ignoring me, freezing our accounts, and trying to ruin my life. What's your endgame here?" I crossed my arms and stared at him. "My endgame? It's simple. I'm divorcing you, and you're not getting a dime of my money." His face twisted with rage. "You're making a mistake. You think you're smarter than me, but you're not. I'll fight this in court." I smiled. "Good luck with that. By the way, your company knows about the money you've been stealing. I wouldn't be surprised if they fire you soon." The color drained from his face. You did this?"
"No, Jake.
"You did this to yourself," I said calmly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have better things to do than argue with you." As I turned to leave, he grabbed my arm. "This isn't over," he growled. I yanked my arm free and glared at him. "Yes, it is. And if you touch me again, you'll regret it." I left the house without looking back, my heart racing but my mind clear. I wasn't afraid of Jake anymore. He had lost his power over me, and soon he would lose everything else. A week later, everything began to unravel for Jake. He was fired from his job after the company confirmed his involvement in financial misconduct. His parents refused to help him, and he had no access to the frozen bank account. Sandra called me with an update. "We've won the preliminary hearing. The judge agreed that Jake's attempt to transfer the house was illegal, and he won't be able to claim any ownership of it. The divorce proceedings are moving forward, and with his financial situation, he's not in a position to contest anything." I felt a wave of relief.
"Thank you, Sandra.
"I don't know what I would have done without you. You did this, Megan. You stood up for yourself." That night, I sat on the hotel balcony, sipping a glass of wine and thinking about everything that had happened. I had been pushed, betrayed, and threatened, but I had fought back. Jake thought he could break me, but instead, I broke free. A month after the divorce was finalized, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Jake. I debated throwing it away, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dear Megan, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I lost everything, and I know it's my fault. I wish things had been different. If you ever find it in your heart to forgive me, I'd appreciate it. I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. Then I tossed it into the trash. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his closure. I had given that to myself the moment I walked away.